Welcome to the Get Offset podcast. My name is Emily.
And I'm Joan of Heart.
And there are some controversies going on today. And the first one we're going to actually, neither of them's any strangers to controversy, but
No, not at all.
Josh Scott of JHS Pedals is especially, uh, he finds himself in weird controversies a lot. Some of them I think have been more valid than others.
Mhm.
But the one right now is everyone's calling it a scandal, basically. Reverb even called it his Bad Monkey scandal. And for those who don't know, the Bad Monkey was a cheap as hell made in China clone that's been available for about
Like
19 years,
19
according to
years,
him.
it was like $50 cheap pedals.
Yeah, it's the kind of pedal you probably until this week could have found in a bargain bin
Yep.
in any guitar shop that sells used gear.
Yes, now it is causing the internet and buyer frenzy of people trying to obviously get as much money for them as possible. It's a collectible item, and it's just like anything Josh holds, it's like,
Well,
here's some random object. And
yeah.
yeah, just
So to back up a second, he
mm,
featured a bunch of clones on his
yes.
live YouTube show. I guess it's live. Is it always live? His YouTube show this week,
Yeah, his
and
YouTube show.
was very impressed by the Bad Monkey imploring people to use their ears, not necessarily their eyes when buying gear, because boy howdy, the Bad Monkey is one ugly pedal. As were, no
Yep.
offense to Digitech, a lot of their pedals back then.
Yeah, they were the ugly duckling, you had to, you know.
Yeah. So, as what happens when Josh Scott features a pedal on his show, especially a cheap one, demand started to go through the roof. They used to be
Yes.
$45 on Reverb,
Oh my
and they've shot
god.
up in price to probably well over $100,
Oh, yeah,
used.
it's gone to, like, 200. I've even seen someone at, like, maybe, like, 500, like, at some points, so I don't know
Yeah,
if that's
Reverb
changed, but yeah.
Reverb posted some recent prices, mainly just from March 16th. 175, 190, 155, 150, 225, 140, 199, 189, 125, and 200. Those are the most recent transactions as of recording this
Yeah.
on a Thursday. So,
Also, the other thing that was I thought was adding, I guess, to the fire of the controversy is the fact that Joss then also listed a complete set of 11 early aughts made in China Digitech pedals that could be yours for just a cool $55,000.
to be clear, that's obviously a joke. He did the
It
same
is.
thing with a Klon for
I
half a
know
million dollars or something
it's
like
so
that.
trolling though. It's so trolling.
Yeah, so obviously people have been saying a lot of things.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how one could possibly construe uh it as being a bad thing to highlight pedals. Obviously, if Josh Scott talks about something that's affordable, it's not going to be affordable anymore, and that is kind of a bummer. Um, but like this isn't market manipulation. This I am sure he knows what's going to happen, but it's just kind of a product of his renown in this industry. And if you watch this podcast, listen for a long time, I'm not Josh's like starkest defender, but I think I am going to be vaguely defending some supposed villains in this episode.
Villainy.
Y'all are going to be especially mad at my next take, I promise. But, like, I just don't think this is market manipulation. He has a show, like, he's gotta create content for it. He's highlighting of pedals that people can buy, and it's really, you can't even if he knows it's gonna happen, you can't really say it's his fault when prices on these things do go up. And, it's a shame if you couldn't find out from someone else that these were great pedals that are very similar sounding to many $100 clones. I think, frankly, primarily, the blame is in the sellers and a little bit the buyers. Like, if
If
you're
you're
gonna spend
buying it,
2
it's your fault, yes.
if you're spending $200 for a
Yep.
clone, like, there are other options. There's, like, let's see how much My Little
Yes.
Cloney costs
There are other
now.
options for sure, and it's just you're also buying something that's, like, almost 20 years old. Not to say that, old things aren't better than new things, but I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
just to
mean,
me, it doesn't make sense.
you can get oh gosh, I wish this site was loading faster. The My Little Cloney for $135, and then you're supporting a small business instead of
Of course,
just, people who are resellers, flippers on,
and most
uh
possibly the same circuit.
yeah, like,
Yeah,
very similar stuff, um, and probably gonna hold up a little bit better. Obviously, these Digitech pedals have lasted significantly longer than I would have expected them to, like,
oh, yeah.
I remember feeling like they were kind of flimsy.
Mm,
Aesthetically, that line looked a lot like Boss pedals,
yeah.
um, which is I really like that form factor a lot. So, like, I get it, but
Hmm,
at the same time, um it's not great. I think Jason Isbell plays one, but his complaint is that it's not true bypass, so it's all that's why it's always on is because it's not true bypass, but you could feed it through
I
an
got you.
effects loop and turn it on and off that way. Yeah, it's wild that this is happening. The same thing happened last year with the Digitech DF7. I think it's safe to say that there are some winners among these Digitech pedals, which shouldn't be surprising considering how, like, renowned a lot of people who worked on these pedals still are in this industry. It's just they're, I would say it, ugly. They have this
Yes.
vibe of being kind of cheap. They're not cool until Josh Scott makes them cool. And why is it Josh Scott's fault that it took him to make it cool? You could say the same thing. Yeah, you can say a lot of bad things about Josh Homme, but like the whole like little PV amp thing that he told
Oh,
everyone that was his
yes.
secret sauce in the studio.
Yes, I remember that.
And suddenly they became just, like,
Oh my god.
outrageously expensive, and people started making, like, boutique versions of that sound in a box, Acorn amps, I think, being the most,
Yes, that one.
visible one, an
And I think
obvious one for that
yeah.
matter.
Mhm, I think that was only, like, either 200 or 220, comparative to buying the amp itself. You get the same sound for a lot cheaper.
Yeah, so people who are buying these, they're really I just don't think you're buying it for the sound if you're paying 200 bucks for a
Hype,
Digitech
hype,
pedal.
hype.
Even if it sounds good, like you're not doing it because it's a budget option. You're doing it because suddenly it's cool, suddenly it's a flex, and you have
Yeah,
other great clones you can buy out there for
of course.
significantly less, man.
No, I agree. And again, taking it back to the whole thing that Josh not being really responsible for this, he states himself to the people complaining that I raised the price on this pedal and now you can't buy one. I would like to remind you that you had 19 years, but you never cared. But this also paraphrases, I think, the clone that Bill Finnegan basically has printed on his kindly remember the ridiculous hype that offends so many is not of my making. So I found it interesting how it kind of in some kind of way says about the same thing.
It's definitely an echo, and I
Yes.
think that's I have to guess that was probably a
Yeah.
little bit intentional on Josh's
Intentional.
part. Josh is a bigger, for lack of a better phrase, shit poster than most people think that he
Yes.
is. Like, he's definitely got a sense of humor about
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
Um, and I just gotta remind people as well, like, this is guitar pedals, man. This is supposed to be fun. It's not
Yeah.
supposed to be so serious just because you can't get the thing
No.
that you want. It's not the end of the world. Like,
No.
it's just like there are other options. I'm pretty sure I've said this when Andrew was on the podcast as well, that like it's just guitar pedals, man.
Yeah, that's really it. And again, a lot of the same circuits are in different pedals. I mean, your option isn't only the one that's being hyped right now. There's other ones that your ears guide you. I mean, not just with someone
Yep.
holding it and telling you this is the best thing since sliced bread. Like, let your ears guide you. Find your happiness. That's what's important.
Yeah, that's why I tell people when they talk about, like, can you trust demos and stuff? I'm like, well, unless there's a lot of post production on them, do you trust your
Yeah.
own ears? And the thing is, like, I don't think people do. I don't think people do trust their ears
I
to make
don't.
informed decisions, because I don't think that I should say I think it takes a long time to kind of learn what you're listening for, to train your ears to hear different things, and it's an ever learning process, that, it's a lifelong process, and what sounds good to your ears changes over time. I read a study today for work that talked about how, the older you get on in general, the
Mm,
more you prefer to hear, like, a sound signature in an earbud or earphone that has a stronger high range. I'm talking 16 kilohertz kinda stuff, between 10 and
okay.
12 and 16 kilohertz, ideally closer to 16. And, the limit of human hearing is 20. I think it's because as you get older, you can't hear as high, generally
Yeah.
speaking, so you need a bump up there as well, but, like, yeah, sound is ever changing to our own perceptions, and also, nobody's gonna know if you spent like, by listening, if you spent 500 bucks on a Klon or
Mm.
135 bucks on a My Little Cloney.
Mm. Yeah, I really don't think so. If it sounds good in the mix, I mean, it's going to be blended in with different instruments. No one's going to literally listen and go, "Yeah, that's X pedal." They're going like, "Oh, yeah, the song sounds great." Like it's really not in that kind of hyper
Yep.
focused detail.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, sometimes you probably listen to stuff and you're like, "I don't like that tone," and you have, like,
Yeah.
reasons, but you're probably not, unless it's something very obvious,
Mm,
you're probably not super duper able to guess
what
what a
exactly?
specific pedal is. "Oh, it's a delay pedal, it's, like, this kind of delay, it could be one of these
Yeah.
5 options." The idea that you can go in and be like, definitely that is definitely a bad monkey." No,
Yeah, I don't
absolutely not.
know. No, I don't think so. And again, like when you're thinking about comparative videos, sometimes if you want to talk about post production and combining, comparing old with new, the only thing I could see when I was watching, obviously the comparison in the clips that I watched, I would say that the Bad Monkey either was volume wise or something was just slightly a tad volume louder than whatever it was compared to. Obviously, it's the focus of the video, but that was the only thing I really noticed, the 2 if it was at play, but, I mean, again, use your ear, let that really be your guide.
And this is a great example where your ears will lie to you.
Yeah,
In those kinds of situations, like, your ears will prefer something that's a little bit louder.
louder, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just like the Pepsi taste test thing. Something that's sweeter, like Pepsi is sweeter than Coke,
Mhm.
will taste a lot better on a very small sample, but could make you feel pretty nauseated by the
Larger
end of the
sample.
bottle. And that's just the truth. Like, I've seen demos of microphones and someone it was like, "Which mic do you prefer? Mic A
Yeah.
or mic B?" Guess what? They were the same mic, one is just louder,
Hmm.
or when I had the gain turned
So,
up or something. Same thing. It's
yeah. So
yeah.
that's pretty much kind of what I was thinking about it. Like, even if they sounded exactly the same or not, like, that's the only thing in listening I could say if they did post production, that's the only thing I could say. Like, other than that, it's still, at the end of the day, yeah, you make your choice. And if you want to spend that kind of money on something like that, I mean, you do you, boo, but not me.
Yeah, I'm never demoing another Klon, I just don't particularly like them. Um, yeah, I find those hard to
That's not my
demo
sound
anyway,
either.
just I find them hard to demo because of, where they sit. They sit best in a mix, and I don't generally do full tracks, but there's plenty of people who do if you prefer that kind of demo. Yeah, I don't have much else to say about that one, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, at least the people that I was seeing on Discords talking about it, I mean, there's some people that had them in passing. They're like, yeah, I had it for a time, but, I sold it and, either I don't miss it or like, well, I wish I held on to it now because of the frenzy. That's pretty much the mixed aspect I saw it, not obviously saying, oh, yeah, it has such great tone. Like, I didn't see any text written like that at all.
No, it's just people feel like it's market manipulation, but the thing is,
Mm,
if to be market manipulation truly, Josh would have had to have in advance bought a shit ton of them
of them
and
and then
then
sold them
slowly
himself.
be, like, seeding them out, and I think he's got better ways to make money.
Oh, no, he definitely does, and he's really good at what he does,
And
so
everyone who is selling one on Reverb is, like, singing his praises right now, I'm sure, so
Oh, I'm sure I see other people saying, "Oh, is there any way someone could talk to him and tell him to, like, sell, talk about X pedal for me next week. And I'm just like, and I, of course, I joke and it's like, yeah, I have a boomerang phaser, like, Fraser 3. Can he like hold one of those up next week? Cause I'm
Hold
selling
it up,
one.
say it's good.
Just hold
Just
it
do
up
it.
and just let your face next to it for me. That'd be great.
Do it, Josh. Do
Do
it.
it, Josh.
For all the demo artists and YouTube like, Guitar Gear YouTubers
Yeah.
in the world, he's obviously, like, the one who can manipulate the market the most if that's what he really wanted to do, but
Yeah.
I from everything I've heard about Josh, like, he just really likes pedals, like
Yeah. I think, again, as someone who feels the same way, yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I definitely can relate to that.
Yeah. Well, before we get into our next topic, I would like to implore you to like, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a review and a rating. It really helps when people search for guitar podcasts in Apple Podcasts. If you're listening or watching on Spotify, hi.
Hello.
I don't know what else to say about you. Hey, what's up? And if you're on YouTube during the premiere, love and appreciate you all.
We
These
do.
chats are one of the highlights of my week. And if
Me
you
too.
are watching during the premiere, you can leave a super chat if you want on YouTube. And if you're not, you can say thanks below if you feel so inclined. And if you want to give to the podcast on a regular basis, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/get offset for as little as $5 a month. You have access to our exclusive Discord server and can feed us ideas like this one.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, I always love talking to people, on the Discord and everything throughout the years, and I've met the best people that way.
Yeah, they're a really great group. You're a little bit more active than I am right now. I'm a little overwhelmed with life.
Oh no, I'm editing this week and still I'm finding just certain moments for my brain to like catch a break because otherwise I'll stress myself out. And I'm like, okay, oh, Philip from 41, posted a thing today. Oh, awesome. I'll listen to that. But hey, what's going on here? All right, back to work. Like just here and there, little spurts.
Yeah, no, that's basically how
Sanity.
Discord that's what I like about Discord. We
Me
used to have
too.
this big group chat going on, and it was, exhausting. Couldn't keep up
Yeah, the
with
big
it.
Facebook one. Yeah, no, I remember that.
The early days.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's the big guitar controversy I felt like talking about this week. The other big controversy in music, it's Ticketmaster again, guys. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, it
people are mad
is.
Ticketmaster's job is for people to be mad at them, so they're not mad at the people who are actually responsible for the
Oh
fees.
yeah, deflect, hey guy, look over here. Like don't look this way.
Blame a big entity who, for the record, I think Ticketmaster is bad. I think they never should have been allowed to merge with Live
No.
Nation. I do think that merger should be, uh, I think they should be forced to split up. I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I'm saying that knowing that by saying that, I may lose future career opportunities. I have applied for jobs with I've worked with
Mm.
AEG before. I interned with AEG. And I would have worked for STG, which is a Live Nation company, if I could have, but I couldn't.
Mm.
But yeah, people are mad at Ticketmaster again. This time it's The Cure that caused the ire of, well, The Cure didn't cause the ire of many
No, not at
people.
all. Yeah.
But the process of buying the tickets did, namely, The Cure worked really hard to go against this
They did.
trend of so some artists like Bruce Springsteen have done this kind of flex pricing where they're essentially trying to price out the secondary market by just charging a lot of money the first time. Couldn't see that one going wrong. Couldn't see
Mm.
that backfiring at all because their thought is surely if someone's getting that money, why not me? Tours are expensive, man. You have to pay, your agent, your manager, your tour manager. You have to
Yeah,
pay
everyone's gotta get paid.
all you have to pay the whole crew. You have to pay your band, and you as the artist get paid last. That is just how it works. Um, so that's why sometimes, people come out of tours not really making any money. Pretty famously, Prince's Love Sexy tour in '88 was not profitable until the final leg in Japan because it was such an inexpensive tour and tickets were so reasonably priced. And
Wow.
Yeah, that's didn't make a lot of money on that one, but, I don't think a lot of people know how Ticketmaster works. People just blame Ticketmaster and Ticketmaster alone, and that's understandable. Ticketmaster as a company was started by a couple music fans, and they just wanted to have a better way to buy tickets. Then it was purchased by, another company, and the similar thing happened, um, let me see, Ticketmaster was founded by 2 college students in Phoenix, but sputtered until it was purchased by Hyatt Hotels
Mhm.
founder Jay Pritzker in 1982, had a man, named Rosen. What is his first name? What is
Fred.
Rosen's Fred
Fred, yeah.
Rosen's
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Fred Rosen was, appointed CEO, and after that, Ticketmaster really took off because they approached ticketing in a different way. Instead of the concert goers being Ticketmaster's customer,
Mhm.
it was the venues, which is an interesting way to say this. The Ticketmaster pays venues sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in advances for the right to um do all the ticketing for exclusive ticketing for venues.
Yeah,
I have
so
another
they're
one
the only
pulled.
game in town, yeah.
Yeah, and for a place like Seattle where the for a long time the only big venue to play shows, and probably still the only big indoor venue outside of the Climate Pledge Arena, is the Tacoma Dome, for which Ticketmaster pays, this is a 2017 article, I believe, $450,000 a year, and that's not the signing bonus that these venues get.
Jesus.
So, Ticketmaster pays a lot of money to these venues and has to get it back, and that's
Mm,
part of where the fees
the
come from.
fees, yep.
And then the fees start, and then the venue's like, "Well, I want some fees." So venue gets some fees. The promoter's like, "Well, I want some fees." Promoters get some fees. And that snowballs
It's crazy.
into this drip pricing where, "Oh, tickets are $40. I really want to go." Your price gets doubled or more sometimes. And that's what Cure fans were complaining about, is that the Cure works so hard to this verified fan system to make
Yeah, the
sure, and
lottery
like
system,
basically,
yep.
yeah, and non-transferable tickets and things like that to prevent
Yeah,
scalping
limit,
and
yep.
keep the prices low. But then these fees were doubling the price of the tickets, and they're hidden at
Yep,
the end, and they seem to have nothing to do with the cost of the ticket. There's no consistency.
yep.
If these are actually fees created for certain purposes, like maintenance, or if you want to charge for convenience or employees and shit like that, then why is it not the same for every ticket? Why is it literally like, let me pull up this tickets Taylor Swift ticket I
Yeah,
saw.
that's what I was gonna ask you because I was seeing the 2 different tickets and 2 different prices had 2 different, cost as far as
Mhm.
fees depending on what the actual final total price was reflected.
Yeah, so these are 2 Taylor Swift tickets in different stadiums. They're different sections. The 100 section, that's closer to the floor, tickets were $265 a piece, and then you had section 300, so that's probably in the rafters, for $109 a piece. So 1.5x, you would think the fees would either be exactly the same or 1.5x. No. The order processing fee, yes, that is $5 each time. The facility charge for the more expensive tickets is $8. For the cheaper tickets, it's 5. And here's where it gets
Mm.
bananas. For the lower level seats, there's a service fee, which is a mystery. There's
Yes.
no transparency on what that is.
Mm.
$70.45 for the low bowl, for the Raptors 23.20.
Yeah, I thought that was wild, the fact that it was so drastically different given the location, not a stable price of fees. Where you're located, you're getting hit with a tax, a fee tax, big heavy one.
Mhm, and these are separate venues.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you bought the floor tickets at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. God, what a
Jeez.
terrible name for a stadium. I don't know if it would have been less. And I don't know if the Raptors would have been more in Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, but regardless, this is the same tour,
Yeah,
and just like, even if it is by venue, these are so different. These are all Ticketmaster. They're
drastically.
all Live Nation. Actually, I don't know if Taylor Swift worked with AEG. I know she tried to,
Well,
but
this
it's
one
it's
said,
wild.
yeah, it says basically Ticketmaster receipts, so this looks like it's Ticketmaster.
Yeah, and Ticketmaster often has exclusivity that they very rarely waive, but,
Hmm.
the way that's often worked is that if you don't use Ticketmaster, they will, for lack of a better word, threaten you and say, "Well, then you just might not get these Ticketmaster,
Yeah, exclusive.
shows.
Mhm.
These Live Nation shows are pretty good. We got some big acts." And AEG can book shows at Live Nation venues for sure, but then they can't use
Mhm.
their AXS ticketing system, which I find to be better than Ticketmaster by,
Okay.
a hair. It's no Eventbrite, but it's wild. Ticket buyers in the mid-70s paid a service charge of less than $1 per ticket, usually like 50 cents, 75 cents. And then venues that partnered with Ticketron, that's who you used to call to get tickets or line up,
Yes, I
25
remember.
they paid the venues paid Ticketron back then for the service. So now
Yeah, it was
Ticketmaster
drastically different.
pays Yeah, so now Ticketmaster pays venues, and then they all get a little
Yeah.
piece of the pie. It's wild. In 1982, Ticketmaster sold $1 million in tickets, and by 1990, wait, oh yeah, the first year in 1982, it was a million. In 1990, it was 600 million, and it was 2.5 billion dollars by 1988.
Huh.
And this is what happens when people who own hotels and use car dealerships get into the music industry, which wasn't always treated super duper like a real business for a long time. And Clear Channel was started by used car salesmen, and they decided to make radio as a way to, you play songs to make money from the ads. It's not about music. It's just literally not.
No.
They just saw people not running businesses like businesses and decided to run them like businesses and screw everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you think about we were talking about when you had to call and phone in, like for if you had to go to the like movie phone, which also Ticketmaster aggressiveness and undercutting movie phone, of course, at the time frame when they were selling tickets by phone is obviously again Ticketmaster has had a history of pretty much trying to be the only dog in the fight.
Mhm. Yeah, they won a monopoly. They kind of have a bit of a vertical one right
Yes.
now. I'm seeing some other tickets in here. Metallica World Tour next to a Black Eyed Keys, Black Keys tour. Both had base tickets of $135, and they bought four of them. These are literally the same seats.
Oh my
How'd
god.
they get that? So
That's why it didn't make sense to
one
me.
has yeah, and one has a ticket total of $540, while the other one was $158, because the Black Eyed Pea the Black Keys the
I'll
Black
bump it
Keys
up.
had way cheaper, essentially no fees. Oh my god, that's actually wait, that's even before fees. Hold on. I'm not understanding this math at all.
It's
But the
maths.
Metallica tickets actually ended up being $700, and the Black Keys $235. The Metallica show had a $5 order processing fee. Keys had
The
$5.36.
keys.
The facility charge for Metallica was $10. The charge for the keys was 17-ish. And then the service fee for Metallica was almost $30 a ticket, and the
Oh my
keys had just had tax at $1.23. That's so stark how much fees make a difference in
god. Yeah.
the pricing.
No,
But yeah.
it's wild, and even, like, an article that was talking about the whole thing with Pearl Jam back in the day when they tried to take on Ticketmaster. I thought it was really funny in the article because, of course, it's the big bad being Ticketmaster, but in the article at the time, which this is, you know, decades in the past, is saying, "Yeah, Ticketmaster, may have some trouble, like, recovering from this bad publicity." I'm like, "Nah, they're fine. They're
Not
doing
when you don't
really
have a
great."
choice.
No.
No. No, it's like, "Oh, we heard that some iPhones overheat and the battery expands and it explodes." People aren't gonna stop buying iPhones because of that.
No.
It's because you don't have a choice. Like, you can
No,
go
there
with
is
an
none.
Android
The
phone and
illusion, yeah.
yeah, you can go with an Android phone and completely change your whole workflow. And some people, if you like Android, you like Android. That's awesome. I've had iPhones since I was 19. I don't know what it would take me to move from an iPhone, but I
Mm.
assure you it would be a lot. And I don't
Oh,
particularly like
man.
iPhones. It's like
Yeah.
this is either you go to the show or you don't go to the
Of
show.
course.
Are you just not gonna go to the show? Not gonna support the artist that you wanna see? No. Of course you're not. But
No.
Ticketmaster's not the only bad actor here. You have to also blame the venues,
Mhm.
and to an extent, you have to blame the promoters because in music, everything's negotiable, and this Black Keys ticket shows that. There have been promoters who are able who have the the ability and the pool to change these fees.
Oh, they have the capacity to do that for sure.
Yeah.
They're just don't want to.
No, but let's talk about the venues that are then also turning around and demanding 20 to 25% of artist merch.
Wow.
And that's
That's
normal in this business to the point where it's like there are artists asking venues to sign that a pledge to no longer take merch cuts from artists. When I heard like that was a thing, I thought it was small, but no, it's a huge percentage. And
that's
it's why merch at concerts is often more expensive than buying it online.
yeah.
And they will make you count everything. They'll make you count in, they'll make you count out to
Jesus.
make sure you're not stealing from them. It's like they're counting cups for the bar sales to make sure that people aren't walking away with free beers. It's it's just how this
That's
industry is. And it would be awesome to if people had more pull, like Taylor Swift did more to change it. And I think, you
yeah.
know, Robert Smith from The Cure obviously infuriated about what's been
Oh, yeah,
happening.
he's been commenting about it online, and he's like, "I'm working to solve this. I'll let you know, obviously, as soon as I know any more details," but, he's
Mhm.
calling them out and gonna try to see if anything can be obviously solved. Don't
Oh,
know if he'll
things
be able to, but
he
yeah.
was. I can
Oh,
tell you already as of an hour
update?
ago.
Oh,
After
shit.
further conversation, Ticketmaster have agreed with us that many of the fees being charged are unduly high, and as a gesture of
Yes.
goodwill, have offered $10 per ticket refund to all verified fan accounts for lowest ticket price LTP transactions. I am not fully sure what that means. I don't know what the LTP thing was. I have not done this fan verified thing for any show
Mm,
ever. Um, but also, so let me see.
go
And
Robert.
a $5 per ticket refund to all verified fan accounts for all other ticket price transactions for all Cure shows at all venues. If you already bought a ticket, you will get an automatic refund. Tickets sold tomorrow will incur lower fees.
Wow, good job. That's amazing.
And that it was that fast
That fast?
shows that exactly how unnecessary it is
Yeah.
and how unnecessary these fees are. Like, you can't be like, it's
Come on, it's like
airlines were
fat cat
forced.
syndrome.
Yeah. I mean, airlines were forced to do all-in pricing years ago, and, because you don't want those surprises on your airline tickets,
No.
and I know some sites like StubHub have experimented with all-in pricing, and they found that most people don't wanna search by that. I've actually asked them about it. And they said, "In our experience, most people did not like or use that feature." And,
Mm.
personally, I don't want all the fees and stuff to be baked into the ticket price because I want there to be more transparency
Yeah,
about what's the artist getting and what's the venue and what are the venue and the Ticketmaster trying to milk out of us.
exactly.
Yeah, but I highly recommend reading the book The Ticketmasters. It talks about the early days of Ticketmaster and how it became this thing we all love to hate. And
Or we have,
they are
yeah.
so fine being a scapegoat, dude. They don't care.
No, they just shrug. They're like, "Yeah, we're the bad guys." Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, sure.
well.
Don't.
You still need tickets, right? Yeah, next
Yeah.
Friday, right?
It's a lot easier to blame one organization than
Yeah.
uh the system. And it
No,
really
of
is the system
course.
is what's the problem here.
No, exactly, and again, like, when the ticket sales went up with the Cure thing, I was just like, "Oh, obviously it's a buy a lotto system." I didn't know, obviously, whether I would or wouldn't. But again, I'm still kinda worried about in August, there's in Tampa, I think it's Tampa, the Ghost is coming back through, and they're gonna do another showdown then. I was just like, can I go to this one? Will I be able to afford to go to this one is the thing. I still don't know. I haven't checked, but I was just like, I have this fear
Yeah.
of like, I really hope they're not so expensive that like it just prices me out completely.
I've just stopped going to big shows. Like I think I saw Beyonce in a stadium and I saw Adele, but like
No, I don't
if a
remember the
band I
last
like gets
one.
big enough that they're playing arenas,
Yeah.
just not gonna keep seeing them. I don't enjoy that experience. I think the sound is often really bad at them. I remember
It's not,
seeing,
yeah, that great.
yeah, I remember seeing Bob Dylan at some, like, big kind of
Hmm.
arena, like, this kind of place that has, like, tractor pools and,
Oh my
stuff
god.
like that, but he played there because you could do really cheap student tickets and they would accommodate that.
Okay,
So I
yeah.
saw Bob Dylan for 10 or 20 bucks. It was
Mm.
awful.
Oh.
It was just awful. I could not tell what songs were being played. The acoustics in that space
Uh,
were made for they're made for monster truck rallies. They're not made
yeah.
for music. They're made for the
Yeah,
circus.
that's horrible. Yeah, I had a similar, it's not a large venue, but at least around here it's one of the venues you can go to see either indie or like not R&B or hip hop because that or DJ, EDM. It's mostly Miami. So to see any kind of offshoot of anything else, there's the Fillmore that's down here. And Fleet Foxes came in and I was super excited because, I did like, you know, their album, their music, and going there, the sound was so bad, I couldn't hear anything he was singing, and I just walking out, it was just like, "Oh, that was just, like, probably the worst experience." I don't hate Fleet Foxes anymore, but I was just like, "Oh, I really wanted to feel like I was immersed in their sound." I could hear their voice and everything, but yeah, it was just a whole bunch of, like, a vacuum of, like, sound of mud, like, you couldn't hear anything, and it was just, like, certain venues, it's just like, yeah, just
Yeah.
the sound just destroys it if they don't do
And
it
I gotta
well.
and I gotta imagine they're not one of those bands that's gonna make it up to you with, like,
No.
a really cool setup and, like, projection mapping or something. Like, it's not gonna be an immersive experience. It's just
No. Just the
Fleet
show.
Foxes in an arena.
That's it. That's it.
Um, I don't know if how many listeners know Tyler Mahan Coe. He has two very popular podcasts. One is called Cocaine and Rhinestones, and one is called Your Favorite Band Sucks. He's very smart, very knows a lot about the industry, and he's been tweeting about this a lot today, which is kind of
Mm,
one of the reasons I want to talk about it.
okay.
But he is talking about how like Irving Azoff he's just a fucking genius in the music industry. Uh, the 1970s is when Irving Azoff began negotiating for his artists to be guaranteed more than 100% of the door and just quick departure. For big bands who get guarantees, your guarantee is generally the cost of the ticket price times the capacity of the venue, assuming a sellout. And if it's very far away from that, you will need to either renegotiate that or likely cancel. Um, but guaranteed more than 100% of the door because of how much the venue would make on drinks, parking, etc. So if you paid $7 to see the Eagles, the band probably got $9, and major artists are still doing this. After those 100% plus guarantees became standard at the top, venues came back to the table with, okay, since you're essentially participating in parking and beer, we need to cut the merch. then that became standard, and now bands touring and fans have to give up 20% for no reason. And, yeah, you know, Irving, a genius, obviously, as Tyler points out, probably 85% of the reason everything is the way that it is today, because he was quite a great business person. Tyler goes on to say, economists are technically correct when they argue that the true value of a ticket is what the fans are willing to pay for it. However, it is extremely obvious that fans don't understand who they are paying for it, and knowing that Drake wants $1,000 for a ticket may affect their willingness to pay that much. The
Mm.
argument Azov used to get over 100% of the door guarantees that venues and promoters only make their money if a crowd shows up to see the artist is still true, and is exactly why it is ultimately major artists who are in a position to change this industry, and they're not doing it.
No.
No. When
No.
when when Pearl Jam took on Ticketmaster, started taking on Ticketmaster, yeah, they had some hit songs, but they weren't the biggest one of the biggest rock bands in the world like they are right now.
I
Just
mean, you
saying.
can understand what Eddie Vedder is singing. I mean,
Oh god, you little yellow better. It's obvious he's saying, "Yeah, Brian, I got no
Here's
got
our
it."
friend Ricardo.
Oh god, that was so that's a topic for another episode, but what was that affectation called? Like that, like, butt rock '90s affectation that,
All
like,
I
you
wanna
heard
be
in
with
Stone Temple Pilots'
you.
Creed?
Hootie the Blowfish too.
Yeah, what was that called? Like, that singing with, like, the weird jowls of your mouth. It's
Yeah.
singing for the front of your mouth, it's so weird.
I don't understand it either, but yeah, it was
But what
definitely kind of a style.
But what was it called? Because if anybody knows,
Mhm.
please let me know in the comments what that style of singing was called, because now we have a new annoying affectation called cursive singing, and I listened to the worst cover I've ever heard of the song "Torn" by Edna Swap, made famous by Natalie Imbruglia.
Oh, no.
And it's just like this it's like this singing, and I'm like, "Oh, is he from somewhere? Does he have an accent?" Because Regina Spektor kinda sang like that, but she has an
Yeah,
accent.
of
No, this
course.
guy doesn't have an accent. He's just singing like this. I really hate it. I'm not usually I feel like old man yells at cloud a little bit,
That
but
kinda I it kinda was, yeah, I was kinda getting that visualization. I was like, "It's okay, though." I on certain things, I also stop and contemplate, "Am I yelling at clouds right now? Is this my moment?"
it's one of the joys of getting older. But, yeah, I mean, God, this whole so I wanna drop some hat tips, in this episode, obviously,
Mhm.
Tyler Mahan Coe, who I just mentioned, the Ticketmaster's book that I was given to read when I started working for a ticketing company, thehustle.co, their article, "The Sneaky Economics of Ticketmaster," is excellent. Um, and Seattle Weekly's Pearl Jam versus Ticketmaster uh, is
Yep.
by Fred Moody from 2017. Let me see if that Hustle article has a byline. Mark Dent was the Hustle. Fred Moody is the Seattle Weekly, just Seattle Weekly, and it's a big article about Ticket Master versus Pearl Jam.
Yeah, I was looking through
Yeah,
that one beforehand. Yeah, that's a
it's a
big
lot of
article, but
words.
yeah, it is. I remember.
Yeah. So, and then you look at some of these fees and you're like, "God, that was
Yeah.
that was lower that was lower
Yeah,
then." Like,
it
even if you
was, and we were
accounting for
complaining then
inflation.
about it. We were.
That's because you went from 50 cents to $5
Yep,
very quickly. And now we're at $40. $40?
or
They're
60 in
just
fees.
I'm sure they've done lots of market research and studies to say at what point will people say "fuck you" and leave.
Oh, of course.
And when it's like Taylor Swift, that number's gonna be pretty high, like, especially artists who, like, have younger fans whose parents are buying them tickets, like, how fucking
Oh,
devastated is your
yep.
kid gonna be if you don't take them to Taylor Swift?
Especially if they're a generation that's in their teens
Yeah.
at the time, yeah. They're definitely gonna use the whole blackmail mail of, "I'm gonna have a meltdown if you don't get me these tickets."
Yeah, it's like, who's hot and pop right now and who's
Yeah.
nostalgic with people who have money right now, like the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, and that's some of the things that I guess over the last year or so when I was thinking about the pandemic and all these shows coming back and who obviously had money coming out of the pandemic and who did not. I feel like these concerts now with all the fees and everything are at a price point of these shows are only made for it feels like the haves versus the have-nots are not allowed to come to shows anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's having some effects on, just who's consuming music. I think that's
Yeah.
probably part of the reason video games are really trouncing music in popularity as far as the disposable income of teenagers. Because if you're a teenager, like, you just need a Spotify subscription, and your parents have one, and you share it with them.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to the shows. If you really love music, you're probably doing DIY stuff. So at least there's like that scene that has always existed. But yeah, you can pay $60 for a Pokemon game and get literally hundreds of hours of enjoyment out of it. Or you can pay $120 and take your friend to see a band with you like once. And
Once,
are you
yeah,
making
like
a
maybe
are
an
you having
hour.
And would I say I think that amount of money is worth it? I personally do. I think it's worth it to go out and have experiences with
Yeah.
people.
No, I agree. I do love the times that I've had great experiences going to live shows. Oh, I love them. They're worth every penny. But yeah, that's it's the what's it to you, as far as the cost
Yeah.
investment of it.
I mean, I'm a person who pays a couple $100 a few times a year plus hotels to see the Hold Steady. Like, I'll I'm probably gonna have to, like, pull in the reins on that a little bit. I love that band. I'm gonna see them in, April. I just saw them in December, and
Nice.
I'm probably going to fly out to see them at least one other time this year because I
Nice.
love that band, and I love the experiences, the people you meet, the memories you make. Like, I don't have a lot of times in video games where I'm like, "Oh, yeah, remember when that happened?" No, not really.
I do.
I
That's
do.
me though.
Well, I do last night in Pokemon Go, I caught a 100% IV shiny Ho-Oh.
Perfect.
Perfect.
That was
I
amazing.
I named it psilocybin.
That was hilarious.
Oh, you
That
saw
is
that?
hilarious. No, there was a few times that, Carlos has been online and he's laughed at the names that you've put you put on the Pokemon that are with you. He's like, "Oh my god, she just named it this," and, like, we laugh.
Wellbutrin XL.
Yes. It was just Wellbutrin before, but then it was Wellbutrin XL, like, later. I was like, "Oh, she's upping it."
Wellbutrin was a 2-star shiny Ho-Oh. Wellbutrin XL is a 3-star shiny Ho-Oh, and
Exactly, it's the
psilocybin is a perfect shiny Ho-Oh.
Nice. That looks
People
good.
are like, "What the fuck is that?" But to get back to it, uh, I also saw another study that said, like, teenagers are hanging out with their peers in person a lot less, and the most common and I think correct take on this is, where are they supposed to go? There aren't
Yeah.
malls, they can't afford to
No,
go to
they're all gone.
concerts. Yeah,
No.
what can a teen do after like, God, I guess at any point, like, after dark, like, after the parks close, where can they go where they're not
Yeah.
expected where there's no expectation of them spending money, but they can still have this feeling of independence away from parents?
No, and
Like,
yeah.
people aren't partying in the woods anymore, thank God.
Oh god, yeah. But yeah, that's again, like, my generation, we still had that before internet of the outside play and the inside, which again, like, I still obviously think of those times with nostalgia, and I miss those times, and I wish these kids had that, to be honest. But I know this whole generations after me, it's more the here's an iPad, leave me alone. Or it's just like they don't have these spaces to go again to be independent. And there's these instances of also parents trying to control all aspects of their life. So it's
Mhm.
if you have nowhere to go, then you're always in the presence of, the inability to be independent. And I know that could make teens more angry and angusty than they already typically are, but they do
I think
need
they're
places to go.
depressed.
Yeah,
They're
they are. They're
depressed.
either depressed anxious or even more angrier than previous generations, and I don't fault them at all. Let them go outside, let them do things, give them the tools to do things rather than, just putting them in a corner and say, "Okay, be quiet, let us do our thing," like their parents are working like 3, 4 jobs. I mean, it's very hard to
Yeah.
manage a kid these days. So,
Yeah,
it's I don't
it's hard to
yeah,
be a kid,
it's
you
both.
know?
It's very hard to be a parent, and it's very hard to be a kid right now all around. So it's like, yeah,
Mhm.
how do it just like what we were talking about earlier, like with Ticketmaster or whatever, it's like, how do you solve such things? Like, it's very
Yeah.
indicative of the system. I mean, it's
You
a lot of
you
things.
you gotta give kids places to go they can afford. When I was growing up, I had a season pass for, a theme park, and before you say that sounds luxurious, it paid for itself after 2 trips. It was Kings Island. It's not the fanciest theme park in the world, though it's very nice. So our parents would just drop us off in the summer, and we'd walk to the park, we'd have fun, and then they'd pick us up after the fireworks or whatever.
Yeah,
And that
there's
was we didn't have to pay money after we went. If we wanted a soda or something, yeah, we would do that, but, like, we could ride rides for free. In Nashville, there was I don't know if it's still there, but there was a place called Rocket Town that was kind of an all ages venue. I will say most all ages venues really do seem to be religiously affiliated. That
mm,
stresses me out
yeah,
because especially in Seattle, there were places like
indoctrination, yeah.
that turned out to be kind of cult of personality, Mark Driscoll stuff.
Of
I
course.
don't think there was a problem in Nashville, but I do think there's a reason that all ages venues tend to be religiously affiliated, and it's that they don't need to sell alcohol to make money because you can't sell alcohol at all ages venues. You can, but it's
Yeah.
a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm. I just don't think you should ever create an environment that has grown adults drinking alcohol next to
Around, yeah.
literal minors,
Yeah, it's not a good situation, especially if adults have too much to drink and yeah,
predators. I think
violence,
the
you name it. Yeah.
I think the predatory thing is what wigs me out the most, but,
Mhm.
like a 30-year-old man offering
Oh,
alcohol
yeah.
to a
Yeah. Yeah.
15-year-old,
Yeah.
bad idea. But, a good idea is, watching this podcast, which you're probably doing right now or you're listening to it. Thank you for making the decision to listen to slash watch Get Offset. I've already done the spiels.
You have done the spiels, but, it doesn't hurt to say again our thank yous, our gratefulness that you're here with us and, every week, and we get to talk about gear, share that with you either on socials and discords and everything. And it really is great to be able to talk about passions and things that we love and connect with people that are like us too. And that's, kind of the fabric or glue, I think, of music and art in general. And it's a great thing.
Yeah, it's easy to feel very siloed in today's world.
Hmm.
And, things like this, I think, make it a little bit easier. So, yeah, Joe, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to share. I did kinda talk a lot this one, but it is a podcast.
I didn't really have, I guess, anything lined up as far as like a topic to talk about. But apart from that, I think we kind of covered, the things that are going on the last couple of days.
Awesome. Cool. Well, again, that book I recommended was Ticketmaster's The Rise of the Concert Industry and How the Public Got Scalped by Dean Budnick and Josh Barron. Once again, the hustle.co article by Mark Dent, The Sneaky Economics of Ticketmaster, and the Seattle Weekly article I also mentioned. Um, I will try to remember to put links to those in the video description slash show notes. Sorry in advance if
Wonderful.
I didn't. And then Tyler Mahan Co's Twitter, which you just look him up, man. Whatever.
Of course. Wait, I'm trying to. I think the only other thing I guess that I could mention that happened in the last couple of days is that Pedal Playhouse was featured on
Oh
guitar.com.
my god, I was gonna shout all that. So Joe's had a great week. Joe's been in
Yes.
guitar.com, and that's a real ass interview. That wasn't some like, here's a Google form with stock questions answered. That was a real interview.
No, yeah, like I wasn't really telling anyone that I had talked to someone because you know how in most of your life, like you're always like, you're like, yeah, this is happening, and then things don't happen. And then I'm like, oh, and then I look like an asshole. So
Yep.
it was just like I kind of kept it close to my chest and kind of was hoping the whole time that it would happen. But I deeply appreciate how Killian wrote the interview obviously with him. We had over Zoom in early January. Really great person to talk to. And yeah, he pretty much I think captured the best representation of not only myself, obviously how everything came to be, but also just kind of the way I approach not only just music and the art form of doing all this stuff of the animation and pedal playhouse and everything, but I think he was really good at capturing how I feel in general about how music and how we're inspired by other creators and how it's kind of a way that causes good ripples all around because then whatever you're inspired by, then you go and do the thing. And I think it's really
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, and not only that, you hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube for Pedal
Dead.
Playhouse. That's fucking awesome.
And
Get Offset hit 100,000 downloads,
the same
and
day, I thought it was
I
so
know,
great.
yeah, and Working Class Music surpassed Get Offset in subscribers. Congratulations to Working Class Music for that.
Congrats.
I knew it was gonna happen. Congratulations to Jason, Tia, and, who's Lance, by the way?
Lance and Xander.
Lance and Xander?
Lance and Xander. I think there's four. I think there's four total. Is there?
Nelson!
Nelson. Oh, I'm trying to
Oh, no!
remember.
There goes
Damn
my
it.
theory.
Yep.
Nelson's on camera the least, I think, but, so we were wondering.
Uh,
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Oh my god. Yeah, I
uh.
think that's sorry, Joe. My
I'm sorry.
bad.
My brain's bad sometimes. I apologize. Now I'm gonna feel bad. Shit.
You're good, you're good. Huh. Well, can I ask you a quick question? Did you hear an echo during this episode of the podcast?
I don't think so.
Okay, great, because my monitors were definitely on for it.
Oh, at the at the very beginning, I saw mine was, and I turned them off. The very beginning.
Not the first time I've done that, won't be the last. Everybody out there, thanks for watching
Whoops.
slash listening.
Thanks for understanding.
Until next time, my name is Emily.
I'm Joan of Heart, I think.
Goodbye.
Be seeing you.